Hello and welcome to Coffee Talk with Serge and Gary Steele. If you're watching,
Hey,
welcome.
Gary.
Definitely not buttering up the new CEO anytime soon. For those of you who've never seen a Coffee Talk with Serge, Audra is usually not a bitrate emoji, so we don't know what's happening there. But we tend to chat for about 20 to 30 minutes about breaking news cybersecurity events over the last 2 weeks. Mick Baccio and I do a fun charity challenge deep dive, which I will usually win because I pay Audra her salary. And then we go into a deep dive usually, but this week we're going to do a little bit something different, just out of awareness of everything going on in our life. So before we go any further, Audra, let's hear the news. What's going on in the world? Anything at all, or do we just unsubscribe from that feed for the week?
Well, there's actually a lot going on. So real quick, I wanted to start with an update on the war in Ukraine. So today, President Joe Biden announced that the U.S. will ban imports of Russian oil, natural gas, and coal. Britain also announced that it's going to phase out imports of Russian oil by the end of the year. And just in, we're seeing reports from the New York Times that McDonald's will temporarily close all restaurants and pause all operations in Russia. Now, meanwhile, we're seeing a humanitarian crisis that's unfolding right now in Ukraine. More than 2 million refugees have fled the country, and that's according to the United Nations today. The U.S. intelligence community officials today, they testified about Russia's military performance. This was during a House committee hearing today on worldwide threats. This is an assessment that the ODNI releases each year. And the director of national intelligence, Avril D. Haines, she testified today and said that Russian President Vladimir Putin is, quote, unlikely to be deterred by these sanctions from the West. She also said that the ODNI assesses that Putin perceives this as a war that he cannot afford to lose. And Mick and Ryan, we also heard a number of takeaways related to cybersecurity from this hearing about emerging threats. And it's very interesting because so far during this war, we haven't seen reporting on any major cyber attacks, which were anticipated initially. So what do you guys make of that so far?
Yeah, it's kind of been dominating a lot of our nerd neckbeard conversations, right? And I think there's two or three major philosophies I've heard, and I won't cite the author of one, but one is basically that this is like cyber warfare against NATO and Western nations would be an escalation of a military operation. So trying to keep it, reduced in scale to try to keep that kind of going on. The second one is that they're, I think it's Patrick Gray on Risky Biz who always talks about let loose the hounds. And there could be an active cyber war going on that we have no clue about. And it's kind of like the underwater warfare and the Cold War of subs who are doing a lot of interesting things. And this could be happening right now, and we're just kind of sitting on the sidelines. But from my point of view, I'm not hearing a lot of people being actively targeted. We're not seeing a lot of things happen externally. I'm not even hearing whispers. That's kind of my thoughts, Mick.
I think you're right in that second point that Patrick Gray made, where that unspoken cyber war that occurs in the shadows goes on constantly. I think it's been going on for quite some time. I think it maybe escalated a bit. I think there's that argument as well as, hey, look, did the capabilities just get overinflated from a mass scale perspective? We've seen very targeted intrusions, but we haven't seen something much beyond a DDoS. And I think to the credit of the entire, I guess, globe at this point has really come together in support of, you saw the CEO of Telegram refusing to hand over data. Google has, I think it's called their Shields Up program. Just the worldwide effort to help, bolster cyber defenses in that area. I think it's really paying dividends.
Did Google buy CISA too?
If they did, I hope we get invited to the party because that sounds awesome. No, wait, they bought the other one, so it's now just less names, which is good. It's good.
Yeah. John Leonard is going to be a great band.
Well, some of the highlights that I saw today that I thought were interesting during this hearing was the NSA Director testified that Russia has conducted several attacks in Ukraine. He said 3 or 4 that the NSA has watched and tracked. We did see those wiper malware attacks in Ukraine right before the invasion. So I'm not sure exactly. He didn't clarify what specific attacks he was referring
One thing
to.
I was really interested in is everyone was really thinking there was going to be a heavy attack against OT technology, so ICS
Mhm.
SCADA in Ukraine. And then I read some fascinating discourse this weekend because I've just been doom scrolling nonstop for 2 weeks about how Russian forces appear to be trying, like they were going to use the infrastructure of Ukraine to have a very fast invasion. That was sensible, right? And in my mind, that was things like roads, which makes sense. But it was also things like the telcos and the cell phone
Mhm.
towers and the power, right? And so some of the things that I would have thought would have been attacked right off the bat because you're trying to reduce the economy or reduce the government was power and telco. And some of the things I'm reading are implying that it was not done because they wanted to have that infrastructure available for them when they came in the country. So that kind of does change your operating parameters a bit. You know, you're not gonna. It's like people not bombing bridges because you want to use them later. I guess this is the 21st century version: is don't bomb cell phone towers that you need for Instagram later on.
Yeah, definitely. And I think another thing too that I wanted to mention is that Splunk, we did release some guidance related to this. This is, you see it on the screen here. This was a blog post just the other day that we put out with some guidance because I know a lot of organizations right now are looking at the situation and wondering about the risk of a cyber attack. Now, CISA has said that at this time there's no specific credible threat to US organizations. But they're also recommending that organizations up their security, take a look at their security posture and make sure that they're implementing, the basic recommendations are usually the best ways to defend yourself, even in situations like this where there's that heightened risk.
Yeah, if you scroll down a little bit, Drew, um, we're going to talk about some of this later on. A big shout out to the threat research team here at Splunk. They have a lot of detections, and Audra spent some time using one of the tools we developed internally to kind of the search team to map these. And for those who are curious, what's available for Splunk to help out with Russian TTPs, there's an auxiliary document there that's not really operational. Like you're not going to take a 66-page document and do something with it, but it does go through just all the TTPs. And the problem is, and Mick, you know this from your days when you had a real job, like Russian TTPs are basically everything.
Everything.
So, luckily we have like 600 plus detections in the SCU or something ridiculous like these days. So that was pretty fun to be able to put together that giant list. But there's a lot of stuff there for those of you who are using enterprise security. And if you're not, it's on Splunk base, ESCU, enterprise security content updates, easy to get and do something with today.
Great. Well, moving on now to our next news story today. This was, we're learning more about that internal chat log data that was leaked that was tied to the Conti ransomware group. So Brian Krebs released a multi-part series reporting that a Ukrainian security researcher, he's saying, was behind this leak. Now, initially there were thoughts that this was a Ukrainian affiliate or an affiliate that was pro-Ukraine, but he's reporting that this was actually a security researcher who leaked this internal chat log data. And this came days after Conti issued a statement siding with Russia and threatening retaliatory cyber attacks against the West. Now, this chat log data, it shows that Conti quickly realized something was wrong. Back in September 2020, you might remember the NSA seized control of the TrickBot botnet. And so this reporting
That's when
shows that
Conti ended, right? Like we've never heard of them. There's been no ransomware ever since.
Right,
since
right. Well, what happened was the chat logs are amazing, and Audra, you're sure to cover this part of it. It goes into, hey, look, we're super burned. Our infrastructure is just tooled up by the NSA, and it shows, the Conti group was whoever got us, and they kind of hinted it was the NSA, got us really, really well, and just basically reversed the tool.
Right. Yeah, and something else that I saw from this reporting that was interesting is just more insight into Conti's business infrastructure, right? Which is similar to like any small to mid-sized business. They have coders, administrators, reverse engineers.
Resellers. That's always
Yeah, they
Right,
been
had,
and there's that one guy in the office that always talks about Web3 and crypto and how much money they're gonna make.
Yeah, but that's the actual CEO at this time. I mean, I think that's the
It's amazing when you really look at the logs through them, and what's really the volume of the logs and how readily they were available, and just like they're not in English, which was a big
Oh yeah, I
thing,
was gonna
right?
say you didn't follow Russia. Like your background is not
No,
Russian language,
no, that's
right?
not my AOR. So my Cyrillic, I know there's different letters and they look different. That's as far as I got.
Yeah, we have a guy on the team, Shannon Davis, who's done some really interesting personal work we're hoping to talk about sooner, but he was kind of chugging some of those ransomware logs through Splunk with the auto translator, which I didn't even know existed in Amazon. Um, so really cool stuff. I'm hoping we'll be able to share it. It's kind of been his personal project for a while, but hopefully we're able to talk more on it.
Yeah, and it is interesting to look at all the translations, right? Like there's different words that we were able to map, like toad. We kept seeing the word toad pop up in those chat logs, and it turns out that means Jabber, which they use as a backup in case Rocket Chat goes down. That was one thing we learned.
What about
Another thing, one other
AD, Active Directory? Did they have one for that?
Active Directory, I think, was hell.
Yeah, but what did they
Okay,
call it?
that's
Oh,
yeah.
well, I think that was the word that kept coming up in the translation. So I don't know how that translates in
If you've
Russian.
ever been an AD admin, that's exactly what you would call it. I have much stronger words for Exchange.
I think there
So
was one I saw that stuck out. That was it was one of the operators. Hey, how do I escape Vim? And look, I'm not casting any stones. All
Some
right,
say they're
it's
still
just
there.
And then the other thing I saw that I wanted to point out was one of the managers for Conti had this idea that there was a lot of discussion about that's in Brian Krebs's reporting to create like a peer-to-peer system for smart contracts. So basically this would be a contract stored on the blockchain. So then when a victim is trying to negotiate the decryptor from the ransomware operator, once predetermined conditions are met, then it automatically would hand over the decryptor, which is interesting. I haven't really seen this technology used before with ransomware. But based on this discussion, I think it's something for security researchers to kind of keep an eye out for as like a new technique with negotiation.
Well, I think it
Fascinating.
does add an extra layer of anonymity into the smart. It's an anonymity and the guarantee, right? It's a smart
Yeah.
contract. It's something that automatically triggers. Maybe to include an S bomb in there somewhere. I don't know
That
how
would be
these
nice,
work.
right? Like, it'd be
Wouldn't it?
nice
It'd be
for these
great.
ransomware if they're going to go small medium business, if they're going to have 24/7 support. Our
It's
producer
really.
Drew Church points out that they had backup comms. We talked about that 2 weeks ago. You really
I
just
mean,
need to
it's
mature that business model,
it's crazy because you look at it and it's the same drama and just people that hate working in an office also hate working in a ransomware affiliate. It's just, oh, this person did this and I didn't like it. It's super weird to see that in a criminal organization.
Oh, I thought you were talking about DEF CON goons. So hard to keep up.
Same thing, same
Same
thing,
thing,
same
same thing.
thing.
As Haley
Not as
said,
much money though.
hackers be humans too, apparently.
It's true.
There we go.
Definitely. All right. Third story today. So the US Senate, you might recall just the other week, unanimously passed a package of 3 bills called the Strengthening American Cybersecurity Act. And one of these measures would require critical infrastructure organizations to report attacks to CISA within 72 hours and ransomware payments within 24 hours. So Politico is reporting that FBI officials are concerned about this provision because they think it might actually discourage companies from talking to agents with the Bureau. So in today's hearing with intelligence officials, the FBI director, Christopher Wray, he reiterated this and said that he thinks Congress should ensure companies get liability protection so that they can report to the FBI and to CISA, because that was one of his concerns, which ties into our 60-second challenge today about incident reporting legislation. So I'm curious both of your takes on this and whether or not you think this bill will make a big difference in that if
I
it
think it'll
passes.
make a difference, but maybe
Well, I think
do we go straight to
that's our
60
challenge.
seconds?
Yeah, if you want to talk
Yeah,
about, yeah, we'll do our 60 seconds. You can talk about, we seem to have an extra bank this week.
indeed. Let's go for it, Drew. Let's hit up the 60 seconds. And now, Splunk's Cybersecurity 60-second charity challenge. Remember the rules. You've got to get through an entire subject in 60 seconds, or you donate to today's charity of choice. Good luck. We have a very important charity we're going to donate to this year or this week. Mick, who do we have on?
We've got the Red Cross in Ukraine and everything that's going on now. I think they're all using help. If you can donate, please donate. And also the floods recently in Australia.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know about that. In basically northeastern uh, Australia, they've been really devastated by some floods. Look up Brisbane. We have a lot of friends, coworkers who live in that area of the world who are impacted or their families are impacted, and we of course care deeply about them and want to help anywhere we can. So let me see, Audra, who won last week? I can't remember.
I don't remember. It was Mick, wasn't it?
It was Mick. Oh, crap. All right. Well, Mick, you dealer's choice.
All right. So our topic's going to be, hey, legislation, incident reporting to CISA is a good idea or a bad idea. And that's our charity. I won, so I believe I will go first.
Ooh. Bold move.
And then you can challenge. Drew, you ready? All right, so I feel like we've danced this dance for a while, and whatever mildly illogical straw man in the background scaring away dissension from my old McDonald's farm. Incident reporting is not new, and it's largely ineffectual for the most part, just like that scarecrow. For you three fans of this show, we've actually discussed this very issue months ago, so go back and check. We can use the hits. Now, ignore the arguments of whether it keeps us more or less safe. For all the blue teamers out there, this does nothing to my environment and just adds another step in the process of me getting my job done. This is an extra cost. It doesn't give me any additional resources, and it doesn't appear there's funding for the affected entities. So, but if this is a thing we're going to do, let's go ahead and lean into it. And instead of just mandating incident reporting, go ahead and mandate all of your patching and multi-factor. But this time, put some actual penalties and teeth behind it for non-compliance. Incident reporting is great, but it doesn't affect the affected entity until further down the road, just our metrics. So I don't think it's worth it.
Wow, perfectly timed. Okay, let's roll clip there, Drew. So this is more of a Kovar rant of what really grinds my cyber gears than a sort of direct defense against cyber incident reporting. As Mick said, incident reporting mandates are not new. I can find legislation at least back to 2015 where Defense Industrial Base, or DIBS, were required to report incidents to the Department of Defense on a website. The issue, however, from me as a point of view of someone who used to have to do this, is not when do I declare an incident, is what the hell is an incident? And we can get down to the nitty gritty of defining X, Y, and Z, but you really run into problems just practically applying this sort of legislation at a blue team point of view. Is an incident when you get a spear phishing? Is it when you detect a actual outbound transmission? Who declares the incident? Some of this will get ironed out, some of it will not. So for me, when I kind of go through this, those are the bigger areas that need to get defined before this bill will be useful. And as Mick said, there's no funding and there's a lot of things that need to be ironed out. However, I think it is a good idea because until you understand the scope and scale of what is happening in the U.S. government and the corporations, it's hard to defend.
Wow. All right. Well, I think this week I don't need to put it up to a vote. I know last week I needed some input, but I do think that, Ryan, your point about what exactly is an incident is a really great thing to mention, because
victory is mine.
That is a good question. What is an incident? There's so many things that could qualify.
I think it's defined in NIST.
Yeah. So I think this week I'm going to go with you as the winner.
There we go. Well done.
I don't like this
We're
game.
peanut buttering. Drew, you always disagree and pick Mick. Who won this time? He's going to tell us.
I don't know. I think I agree with Audra.
Yeah, Ryan, I think you've got it. I think incident reporting, we both have this big background in it. It just doesn't, I don't think it helps move the ball. It doesn't help me as an organization. It's just one more thing I have to do in addition to fixing the problem. And there's arguments if it keeps us more, or not doing it keeps us less safe. And I don't agree with that at all. I just don't see the benefit in it for an organization. I see the benefit for CISA. I see the benefit for overall infrastructure. But like you're saying, we know how big a problem this is already.
Yeah, I remember working in the DoD and we had to report up our metrics every week or every month. And, we would then we had a new boss come in at some point who said, oh, I want you to report on metrics on this date to roll up. And I was like, oh, but that's not what we were doing before. That makes us look much better. He's like, yeah, I know. I was like, but that's not the actual. He's like, yeah, I know. This is what we're doing.
It's the same thing. You've all the data calls you and I have had to do throughout our career, right? Hey, heartbleed, send me a list of all your systems. And like that Bugs Bunny meme, just would not happen by the date. Drew, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
So
Something I can share there, Mick. Yes.
Yeah. We've been doom scrolling a lot, and Mick had a really good idea. We could go really deep dive into how to use Splunk to detect and defend against possible Russian APT threats. We could do a lot more talking and discussion on all the things going on in the world. But we decided to take a step back. Hopefully, you'll join us for coffee here, and we're just going to talk about the four of us. We asked Drew to come from behind camera, not something he's overly comfortable with, which is why he's jumping around the screen. Oh, I'm going to throw up
In order. Now we're in order.
Okay, we are now in order of, we could have done it a couple different ways. So we're going to go through the things that we're passionate about, that we worked on the last couple weeks, and hopefully is relevant to you all. And more importantly, hopefully is entertaining. So we're going to start off with the 8-bit Audra. And what have you got brewing, Audra?
Well, a lot of what we've already discussed is kind of my focus. I'm very interested in following the news. Before I came to Splunk, I actually worked in news for about a decade in local TV news. So
your entire professional career, I believe.
Yes, my entire professional career before I made the transition into cybersecurity. So I've been very plugged in to everything happening, but it is important, to find balance and work on other things too. So, I've been as you mentioned earlier in the show, I helped with the mapping Russian APT TTPs to our ESCU detections that we have. And then I also submitted my first call for papers for .conf, which is our conference coming up in June. So that was exciting. And I'll find out here in a few weeks with that. So yeah.
The week by Audra. Mick, what do you have going on?
So I have been slated to give the keynote for B-Sides Charm for the past 2 years, but the conference has gotten canceled and postponed with the world being the way it is. It's in about a month, so I figured I should start my slides soon. So I've been working on that, but how do I know what I'm going to talk about? It was 2 years ago. And anyone who's given a talk at a conference knows you can wait till the last minute. You'll still do your best work. FrontCon, doing that again this April. So super looking forward to holding that conference here in Baltimore. And I think, you and I have been talking about it, and the idea of putting out a book this summer, I think it's a good idea. So I'm really starting to getting ideas together so we can go ahead and put that out, put a book out for some blue teamers and see if we can help move the overall ball down the road.
Love it. That's some fun stuff. And yeah, it's also been a good ride for some of these things. And it's fun to see these conferences coming back. I'm looking forward to attending some. Drew, what's in Drew's world?
Quite frankly, it's been nonstop Elden Ring, but that's after 5 p.m. So I've been trying to get good. Don't know if I've succeeded, but I'm 2 bosses down, so I'm feeling pretty good about it. I think
it loaded.
What was that?
It loaded.
It loaded.
It did. It absolutely did. It did. But on the work front, I think you guys wanted me to kind of show kind of what I was thinking. I talked to a lot of customers about how can we do security from a report that I get.
Is this Google Reader?
No, it is not Google Reader. In fact, it is Mantient, soon to be acquired by Alphabet.
Google Reader is never coming back, Ryan.
Stop trying to make it happen. And so the question that comes up is hey, I got this report passed on to me from my desk, from my CISO, from my SOC director, whatever. How can I do anything with it? And so Mick gave me a challenge today, and that was to take this APT41 report and show how to get to a Splunk security detection in as few steps as possible. And I wanted to highlight this because this. Oh, go ahead, Mick.
The reason why I picked this report, because I know you've been working on this and it's super fantastic. But the reports are those reports we've seen. This was something that just came out today. So, hey, look, this is fresh. I just got to work. My branch chief is on my back. Hey, look, this report came out. What are you doing with it? Yeah, and I got to go to work. So me, CND team, what do I do with it? And that's why I picked this one. That, APT41 kind of, who doesn't love WinNTI?
near and dear to Mick's heart for sure. And so the first thing you do is you obviously read the whole thing and you don't scroll to the bottom where you look for a list of TTPs or anything like that. In this particular case, there were no anything in here that was tied to MITRE ATT&CK whatsoever. All of our detections inside of Splunk Security content update are all mapped to MITRE ATT&CK. If how many times I'm going to say MITRE ATT&CK all at once, it's going to be pretty interesting. But I wanted to highlight just a specific example in here around the tactic of persistence. And so I'm not in this document. There are no MITRE ATT&CK tactics and techniques, but what I do know is there's a threat actor, APT41. In here, for example, right, mentions that leveraging scheduled tasks to change, hey, enable this job to run on a schedule and maintain persistence, right? So if things get killed on certain timeframes, that it can come back, right? And so that question that comes back from that branch chief is like, hey, how can we defend against that? And so what I'd like to do is now transition that from, hey, I have a known threat actor group into, hey, what does that actor group look like when I don't have those TTPs inside of attack? So if I do this correctly, I'm over on the MITRE ATT&CK navigator. And here across the top, you have all the different techniques, and then you have the tactics, and then you have the techniques, and then they can be expanded into sub-techniques. We mentioned there that it was persistence from APT41. And you can see there's a technique, scheduled job, task, and job. And you can see here that sure enough, APT41 has absolutely used scheduled tasks in prior breaches. There's a source there, not this one from Mandiant yet. There's a lot of work to do to take that Mandiant report and decompose it all into the techniques and sub-techniques and feed back into the community that many of us on this call have done before. But you're saying, hey, this isn't helpful yet. How can I do this in Splunk? And so I'm going to pivot over to my lab instance. I'm inside Splunk Security Essentials, or SSE, under the Analytics Advisor. Go into the MITRE ATT&CK framework. When you load that page up, you're brought into a page that looks very similar to this. Mine is going to look a little bit different than what yours is because I've got some security content enabled. I have different data in my environment. Inside the product here, we have this really cool MITRE ATT&CK matrix, right, where all of that content that we mentioned is all overlaid and say, hey, where we have coverage. So all I have to do is here come up into APT41, Mick's favorite group. It's going to reload, and we can see now in the top right of the boxes, hey, where that content is particularly mapped, right, and to that threat actor, right? So in the top right of create account, you have the little tag up here. So if I scroll down a bit, schedule a task job, I can expand this out, and I can see here there's scheduled task, right? So I can drill into this content below on the dashboard, and even go into the content and start enabling it from here. So pretty cool stuff. I think it's helpful, right, to understand that like getting started somewhere is like critically important, and that's what I've been working on.
There we go. I don't think a lot of people know that Splunk Security Essentials has that capability, so it's useful for people who are actually using SSE to see how you can go through.
You know, I think we always hear, you know, the best time to prepare for something is, a year ago, you know, and the best time to start working out is in your 20s, but, you know, here I am. So I guess the best time would be today. Go ahead.
Personal plug, right? I ran my first half marathon on Saturday. So I just went out and ran 13.2 miles, right? And so I think that app is so, like, I did not get there yesterday. I did not do that half marathon. I did that for the last 2 years of, you know, trying to exercise every day for 30 minutes, right? That's kept me sane in the pandemic, and cybersecurity and cyber hygiene is no different than your physical health.
Well, we're down to me, and we're almost at 30 minutes, so I'll be pretty brief. I was just blown away last week. We were awarded a global award from Splunk for our team surge, which is a big part of it. Some people were specifically called out. Others, like Drew, who doesn't actually work for me, but it's just as big of a deal for surge as anything else. So he'll get an award one way or the other. And also, really, honestly, the stuff with Ukraine has been forefront for a lot of the work I'm doing, leading some stuff internal and just helping customers and as we go through. But we're also preparing. Marcus LaFerreira, who's also on surge, we're speaking at MITRE ATT&CK 3.0, and I think at this point, thank God, MITRE is an FFRDC. Otherwise, we'd have to start paying them money for every time we say their name.
A few times today.
Put in the conf talk, I think, like everyone on this call, and we're putting together some CFPs for Black Hat and DEF CON and all sorts of things going on there. And then the final thing, which you'll hear a lot more about later on, is Shannon Davis has been doing months of work on ransomware. And we as a team have been working with him to finish off this really interesting white paper, which we're hoping to release in a week or so, of a comparative empirical analysis of ransomware binary execution speeds. And there were some pretty exciting little things that we pulled out from his work of 100 different ransomware binaries. So that will be coming down. We're hoping to have Shannon on the show here probably in 2 weeks or so to talk about that more. And that's all I have for now. And we are at 31 minutes, which is just about on time. So Mick, anything else we're going to talk about, or we're just going to be back in 2 weeks?
We'll be back in 2 weeks. I just had the realization.
Yep.
Remember our 2022 predictions?
Ah, yes.
We might have to go back and revise our ransomware. I think Conti might need some retooling.
Conti needs some well, there we go. You have your work for the week. Thank you, as always, everyone who joins us. We'll be back in 2 weeks, I believe. And until then, please be safe. And Mick and I will both be donating to the Ukrainian cause here in Brisbane very shortly. So, as always, peace, love, and farewell. Drew, please end this show.
He got it.